All right, this is Grind Season. I'm Jason Smith, one of your co-hosts here on the Grind Season podcast on Odyssey and co-host of the Jason John Midday Radio Show here in Memphis on 92.9 FM ESPN. That show's every day from 11 to 2 on 92.9. This show is on the free Odyssey app or wherever you get your podcasts, but of course you get it on that free Odyssey app. Download, hit subscribe for us. You can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at Jason Smith 92.9. The man beside me is the great Anthony Sain, the very talented Anthony Sain, tribal chief of Grizz Twitter, man who's done it now for the last 10 years, covering the Grizzlies in all forms, all platforms. You can follow him on Twitter at Sain Asylum. Brother Sain, how are you, sir?
Man, I'm good. I'm live from an undisclosed counseling center somewhere in North Memphis.
I was going to say, I couldn't tell if that was a new place. Yeah, is it?
I'm in the same place, man.
Okay, because the painting does look the same. I was about to say, yeah.
Yeah, I'm in the same spot.
Okay. So you're not down there with Job. I was trying to see if you're down there with Job.
No, I ain't down there with Job. I ain't nowhere in Florida now. Now, we normally record these at nighttime or in the evening. Daylight savings time, 5:30 hit different. So, hey, here we are, man. Hey, we on TV. We on TV, but y'all can see our handsome faces. I put my good shirt on, my fresh off work shirt.
I did not. I'm on my spring break vacation.
Yeah,
do stuff around the house.
Like you got a little pink splash or something. Like you got something that I don't know if it's some white gravy or something. You got something going on, brother. We gonna push through it, man.
Sure. Little stain right here, lunch food stain right here. That's happening. We're pushing through. Y'all see, I got the pink room now that we're on YouTube. Wanted to go ahead and show off my wife's office that I do the podcast from. Yeah, see it weekly now, twice a week on YouTube.
Yeah, man, for sure. It's an exciting moment, man. We are available on YouTube. Make sure you guys subscribe to that. I don't know what you're subscribing to, but I know that we are on YouTube. We'll get that information. Will come out soon. Thank you guys for rocking with us so far. This is episode 36, I believe. 36, 31 to 2. Yeah, that's what's up, man. Well, we're here to talk about the Memphis Grizzlies. A lot of things going on, a lot of things good and bad. A lot of stuff came out yesterday. A big win. Had some news before the game. We'll talk about that and many more things today.
Yep. First things first, again, you can hear us this Grind Season podcast twice per week. This will be the first of 2 this week on that free Odyssey app. Wherever you get your podcast, just search for Grind Season. That's SZN. Do us a solid again by pushing that subscribe button. We thank you very much. On this edition of Grind Season, Sain's already laid out a lot of it. Ja Morant, while he's reportedly in a counseling program in Florida, the Grizzlies have won 3 straight since we last talked. Last time we talked, they were coming off a pretty nasty loss to the Lakers. Beat Golden State. Beat Dallas twice, of course, both without Luka and Kyrie. But at this point in the season, doesn't matter who's not there. It just matters that you get the W. That's put Memphis back in the sole possession of second place in the West. That's big. A game ahead of Sacramento and 4.5 games ahead of Phoenix in that 4th place spot. So with 15 games left, second easiest schedule the rest of the way, at least according to opponent win percentage. It's looking more and more likely like the Grizz won't fall below that number 3 spot. We'll ask Sain what stood out the most for him during this 3-game winning streak, because there's a lot to talk about. Been some individual performances we've got to get into, but certainly as a team, the Grizzlies have looked a lot better now without Ja Morant, who's missed, I think we're at 5 games now for Morant missed. So we'll talk about what the Grizzlies are doing so well, at least here in this last 3, and a little bit of look ahead to what's coming. Ja Morant, we mentioned it going into treatment. Do we think he's done for the regular season? Taylor Jenkins has continued to say no timetable. Clearly, Morant is seeking a different kind of help in terms of off the court than we typically seen here of late. We're not talking about a rehab, a physical therapy, anything like that. So we'll I don't know. Since no timetable, we'll ask ourselves, what does it mean if Ja Morant's out for the rest of the regular season? Those kinds of things. Maybe the Grizzlies in a little bit better spot now to sort of absorb if Ja Morant's gone for the final 15 games. Hopefully that's not the case. We'll discuss. And then finally, since we've had 3 games since we last talked, we'll talk about who brought the seasoning, who did or who was or was not hot for the Grizzlies over the last 3 games. I can certainly think of a young man who's certainly deserving of some sort of accolades. We'll see if Sain and I are of the same mind on that. So that's the show. We'll go back. Let's start saying we said it. Last time we talked, coming off a 112-103 loss of the Lakers, a lot has changed. You beat Golden State, handled Golden State here in Memphis, beat Dallas here in Memphis before you head out on the road and you get Dallas there 104-88 in a game that was much more comfortable than the one was here at FedEx Forum, where, man, in the third quarter, it almost felt like Twilight Zone.
Like it's about to be a nightmare loss.
Yeah, without Luka and without Kyrie is just running on you. And the Grizzlies all of a sudden seem to have no answers. They did right the ship, win the game in the fourth quarter. So I'd say now, big picture look, what has stood out the most to you? What have you liked the most in terms of these 3 straight wins for the Grizzlies without Ja Morant?
You can name individual players. I'm just going to throw something out that's more of a blanket statement, more general about what I'm saying. Guys are accepting the responsibility, and they're doing what they need to do to pull out wins. They're finding their own identity without Steven Adams, without Brandon Clark, without Ja Morant, like you said. It's been a tough run without those guys, but they found a way to kind of reinvent themselves, reinvent the way they like to play. We were calling Xavier Tillman, pretty much a store brand Steven Adams with the way they were trying to play, still play the same way as if Steven Adams was out there. And we're seeing that kind of work now. Tillman's kind of adjusting to that role. He got a big offensive rebound yesterday. I can't remember the particular stretch of play, what happened, but I remember him getting one big offensive rebound that led to a bucket in the second half. They're really just finding ways to make things happen, man. Tyus Jones has been good. Desmond Bane has been phenomenal. David Roddy, of course. Jaren's been coming along. They've been finding ways to win, man. And guys who normally will play a lesser role, they're having to do more things now, and they're finding an identity. They're finding a way to win in spite of everything. And kudos to Dylan Brooks. His leadership has been phenomenal. Been kind of all over the place sporadically, production-wise, but as far as being the leader, letting his walk matches talk, he's been doing those type of things. And like I said, this team is really playing some good basketball over the last 3 games, like you said.
Do you feel like, and I don't, 15 games left until the rest of the regular season, do you feel like this 3-game stretch in terms of finding some balance and consistency, treading water while Ja's gone, with what's happened with Phoenix and obviously not having Kevin Durant, you're now 4.5 games ahead of that 4 spot. Do you think this has kind of solidified them in terms of not dropping below 3? We know Sacramento is only a game behind you. That's still possible that they could catch you. They were just tied with you. But do you think does this 3-game losing streak change at all how you feel about the Grizzlies' chances of dropping below a top 3 seed? Have they won their way out of that is what I'm asking.
Yeah, I think they're fine. I've never thought they weren't going to be fine. You remember here and you guys show whatever. I've said that I wasn't impressed by the NBA trade deadline as much as other people were. Teams definitely made moves, but it's a matter if those moves are going to work. I joked on Twitter yesterday about how the commentators for the game, they were talking everything about Dallas and about Kyrie Irving, about Luka Doncic, but not acknowledging the fact that they're not good with both of those guys on the court. They have not been a good team at all. And that team is below 500 now. That Dallas Mavericks team who, when it was Luka and just a bunch of role players, they look like a much better team than what you see out there now. When that Hardy kid has to go off the way he's going off,
man,
they're not a good team defensively. They're playing zone defense. That's the only time that something really works. Is when
he
they're playing
is
zone
good,
defense.
though. I'm with you, Hardy. I like Hardy though.
Oh yeah, Hardy's a baller. You know what I mean? He's a baller for sure. He was a good high school player. Whatever. But that team's just not that good, man. And even with Luka and Kyrie, their records, I think they have a losing record with those 2 guys combined. They're below 500 now. The Grizzlies are, you have, like you said, Kevin Durant is out. The Grizzlies are fine, in my opinion. I don't think anybody behind them can catch them. I think they've shown that they're a competent team, even without Ja, even without Steven Adams, even without Brandon Clark. This team just finds a way to win. And I think that they're 5.5 games up on Phoenix. Them and Sacramento are probably going to go back and forth. That's going to come down to
4.5 on Phoenix. 4.5 on Phoenix.
I've never been concerned about the teams behind us, and I'm not now. The Clippers, the game against us was the first game they won since they got Russell Westbrook. I'm not worried about any of those teams behind us. Golden State is looking like, the best team out of that bunch, and we just beat those guys. We beat them pretty handily, here in Memphis. So, yeah, man, I'm not worried about any of those teams behind us as far as catching us is concerned. It's been, after all the trade deadline shakeup, it's still been Memphis, Denver, Sacramento. At the end of the day, those are still your top 3 teams.
We have we've asked questions about, minutes in terms of deploying guys and whether it's him or management, a directive from management to play guys less when it comes to Taylor Jenkins.
Right.
We've talked about, why he's using certain guys in the rotation and not others. So we've certainly had our criticisms this year of Taylor Jenkins. But I say that to ask you, saying, how much credit has got to be the word does he deserve in terms of, what they're going through right now, having lost Ja, you lose Brandon Clark, no Steven Adams back, obviously had a setback. And, I realize it's Dallas without Luka and Kyrie, and maybe you catch Golden State, who's been bad on the road all year long. But in terms of stabilizing things, when you need your head coach to do so, how much of of what's happened does Taylor Jenkins deserve credit for?
I don't like giving Taylor Jenkins a lot of credit because he's so stubborn when it comes down to things. It seems like they should be so simple. You know what I mean? But I will say this. I'll throw this out to you, Jason Smith, and I'll throw this out to our listening audience. This is just kind of spitballing, just kind of throwing something out. What if it's a little easier to coach this team when your alpha personality, your superstar, who is admittedly has some stuff he's been dealing with on and off the court? What if it's a little easier to coach this team when Ja's not out there? Could that be a possibility? You can do more things. You might can pull the reins a little differently when Ja's not there. Not saying that Ja's the problem or anything, because we're far from the point where we're in the clear. We feel like we don't have anything left to do. But I could definitely see a situation where if you got these guys to deal with as opposed to Ja and these guys, it may be a little easier to coach this particular lineup. I think that Taylor Jenkins is a good coach, but there's certain things about him that just seriously grind my gears, and I just don't understand. For one, you just saw David Roddy have a game where he had 20-plus points, went crazy in the fourth quarter, and you're still playing John Conchar, still your first wing off the bench. I don't get it. I never will get it. I don't care what spreadsheets or advanced metrics show. I don't care about any of that. David Roddy is I'd much rather see David Roddy be your backup small forward right now, who can play some 3, he can play some 4. He can play some 2. I'd much rather see him than any version of John Conchar that we've seen this season. And the fact that Conchar is still your first guy off the bench, even before Luke Kennard, who's shooting the hell out of the ball, those type of moves with Taylor Jenkins always have and always will continue to bother me. The fact that you rarely see Jaren and Santi playing together, I don't understand it. And I'll give him his props when they're deserved. I think he's doing a great job coaching. But I will say I would not be surprised if Ja not being there kind of makes things easier where he can kind of coach a different style of play with a different bunch of guys.
Taylor Jenkins gets no credit from Anthony Sain. Want to make sure that's hard.
I ain't saying that, man. I ain't saying that at all. Now. Come on, now.
0 to 5%, perhaps. Man,
he's kind of winning in spite of stupid stuff. Man.
I get your point on Conchar being the first one off and all of it. What do you have? He had 1 point in
1 point in 2 games
in 25 minutes. 25 minutes in that Dallas win down there. 1 point in 25 minutes. And none in the game before.
Yeah.
But Roddy did play 26 minutes in the second game, so it wasn't like he completely ignored what had happened. Transpired the game before against Dallas. You know what I'm saying? Like he played them more minutes. I'm with you on just stop with Conchar. Like
real quick, Jason. Real quick, man. Let's say that you and your wife.
Roddy played 26 minutes in the second game against Dallas.
Smith, let's say that. Throw out a scenario that could be true. It's spring break weekend, so y'all might be kicking. Let's say you and your wife and CJ went out on a lovely night for dinner, right? It's gonna look like a real Batman scenario. Let's say y'all went out for dinner, right? And some hoodlum walks up on y'all and say, drop off everything you got. And you reach in your pocket and you pulled out a banana, right? And the guy slapped the banana out your hand, and while he was slapping it, you reached out, then you pulled out a gun and you shot the guy, you saved your wife and your child. It all worked out fine, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right? But the question Faith is going to ask you is, Jason, why in the hell did you pull out a banana first? This is what y'all telling me. It don't matter that Conchar. Yeah, it does matter to me that Conchar is the first man coming off the bench. Don't pull out the banana. Don't pull out the gun either. That was a horrible analogy. Shout out to John Morant. But But y'all get what I'm trying to say, man. Why are we pulling out bananas when I got a gun in my back pocket?
I don't know. What I do know is that it feels like whether it's our weekly segment on the show or whether it's on this show, there is always, whether it's Zaire or John Conchar, somebody that you want X'd out. Like that is your main criticism of the team and of Taylor Jenkins. Whether it's again Zaire that's on your eye or Conchar, if they're winning the games, the only reason I bring that up because you're framing it as Jason or anybody that's listening doesn't care that Conchar is the first one off the bench, which isn't true. It's an eye roll thing. But to your point, if it's still getting done and if Roddy is getting 26 minutes, then we are seeing a bit of a change where he's realizing, hey, man, this young guy can come in. Listen, I think the reason he doesn't just X guys out and be done with them and send them to the back of the bench is because he's figuring at some point he may still need them in the playoffs.
I might have to wipe you off and dust you off and put you in again.
And listen, exactly. And listen, right now, you and I think rightfully so, both have more confidence in Roddy than we would Conchar. The way he's playing the game is, listen, when I get to the playoffs, who's the one that's probably going to be the guy that can hit a three-pointer for me? Maybe it is Roddy, but he's playing it where I'm not just going, like you said, put this guy in the back of the pantry. He's got all dust on him, and I'm dusting him off for the first time in the playoffs because at that point, Roddy ain't ready to go. So I think I'm with you. I think it's too much for Conchar right now. I'd put him almost next to nothing, but at least have him out there a little where, hell, but again, man, with no Brandon Clark now, it's almost, and I realize it's a different, but it's almost, man, you're stuck in terms of personnel rotation. Like some of these guys are going to have to be out there, whether that's a Zaire or a Conchar, because they're down to so few bodies. But I can't come in here after 3 straight wins and dump on them too much.
I'm not dumping on them, man. I just can't give them a ton of props either, bro.
I feel you. I mean, you beat a team you're supposed to beat in Dallas twice. I mean, I don't care if no Kyrie, no Luke. I don't care where the game is. You're supposed to handle them. So that's just you took care of business. Now the Golden State one, you can argue with the way that team, has had that was a little bit tougher, but. Like if I'm arguing your point, I could say, man, in them 3 wins, they didn't really done nothing. They won all season at home, and they handled business against a bad Dallas team on the road that didn't have its 2 stars. If I was arguing your point, that said, we're both clearly satisfied, at least for now, with where the Grizzlies are standing after these previous 3.
Let me say this too. Let me issue an apology. I've been saying for a while, free Junior Lofton. I've been saying. Especially with Brandon Clark out, that man needs to get on the court. Junior Lofton got some minutes yesterday. Jason Smith, he looked fine. He was able to put the ball in the basket, but the man looking like he's 6 months pregnant, man. I mean, and I have to apologize that I've been wanting to get him out there. I see exactly why he hadn't been able to get on the court. Junior got to get that together, man. And I think I'm not gonna say that's the reason why he's kind of not playing, but don't give these people anything, and he's to stop you from getting on the court. And he definitely has picked up because he lost a lot. He looked great coming into the season.
Yeah, he's lost a lot already, but you're right.
He looked like he ate like he might have ate what was John Morant partner? What was John Morant friend that don't play for him?
Oh no, not the boy from Murray State.
Shaq Goodwin. Looked like he ate a 2-piece Shaq Goodwin and
Shaq Buchanan, fool. You talking about
Shaq, him too.
They both.
I said Stubby Clapp. That's Stubby Clapp. What's the little point guard, little white guy that can shoot? That's Stubby Clapp. He was the hustle version of Stubby Clapp, though.
The kid from Arkansas or wherever it was.
Yeah. Like Junior ate them dudes, man. But anyway, I do apologize. I've been pushing the Junior Lofton agenda. Dusty Hannah, that's his name. Shout out to our producer, Drew Baird, in the back. Dusty Hannah. I think that Junior may have literally ate the dust off of Dusty Hannah.
No, we're gonna get him in better shape, man. And that kid is gonna be at some point a contributor if he can.
Oh, that's my guy. He's a baller, man. If anything, he can put the biscuit in the basket and take the biscuit out of the basket. Is what he's doing right now. A little bit too much of leave him in the basket.
Yep. He's got a ways to go physically. There's no question about it. Moving on. Of course, you listen to Grind Season. On the free Odyssey app, wherever you get your podcast, you can find us. Just search for Season Grind SZN. You'll find us easy on that free Odyssey app or wherever. Like we said, you get your podcast, download, subscribe, like all that for us. Now we're on YouTube. You're seeing our background. You're seeing Sain's beautiful, lovely home. You're seeing my wife's office behind us. Hopefully that'll give us a little bit of a pop too when y'all see the visuals. Like we said, this segment 2 gonna be on Ja Morant. He is now reportedly in a Florida counseling facility, getting treatment. Listen, I suppose this might have happened right after the original flashing of the gun on Instagram a couple of weekends ago, but officially Powerade has pulled his likeness from the brand's website. I don't think nothing I've seen officially has said they've severed ties to Ja Morant. Yeah, after
signing down a little bit.
Signing him earlier this month, but his off the court issues continue to have real repercussions, real consequences. And we know that right now, set aside what he's possibly lost in terms of the campaign with Powerade, possibly all NBA, and $40 million on a max extension. One of the 3 all NBA teams. Hopefully he's getting the help that he needs. Saying, I asked my barber this. I'm gonna start here. Even if at 23 years old that okay, something's got to change for me, right? I've got a bad pattern here. Clearly, the wake behind me tells me there's got to be a behavioral change at least. If it's alcohol or something like that, how tough is it? How tough is it to realize at that age that you have an issue? If you don't feel like you've really, your life experience is so short and small. If you haven't really hit a rock bottom, and despite what he may have lost, we're not even close to a rock bottom. Can real change occur is what I'm asking you for a guy that's Ja Morant's age, that's been given the power, the money, everything he's had. Can it truly happen? At this age for him, can the help that he's seeking, really help him at this point? Can you really change is the question.
Well, I'm glad that you opened that door. We did not discuss what we would and wouldn't talk about before the show. I'm glad you opened that door, and I'll proudly walk through it. We live in a culture where people are kind of afraid to talk about stuff or assume things. And I'm perfectly fine making the assumption that this counseling facility or whatever Ja's doing, I believe it has to be connected to some substance abuse. I mean, let's just have an adult conversation. It's okay in my mind to assume these type of things. If you go back to the original statement that Ja made when he said that, when this thing first went down and Ja put out his situation, he said, basically, I have stress and I don't deal with my stress the right way. And substances are typically how people deal with stress the wrong way, whether that's a healthy relationship with that substance or an unhealthy one. And it's funny because we've seen Ja do things over the years under the influence of, some known substances that we see, whether it be Casamigos or whatever we're doing, and we laugh at these things, we joke about it. You see the gifts coming out of Ja. What was he doing? I think he shot a quart of Casamigos into the rim, and there was a video about that, and they started calling him Casamigos Morant and all these type of things. And we laughed at those things, and we laughed at him, being belligerent or doing whatever on the plane or on the bus or on a boat or wherever on the beach or whatever he's doing. But we didn't ask the question, what if that could be a problem with Ja? Am I saying he's in a counseling facility for alcohol? No. But I'm just making an assumption based on things that have been in front of my eyes for the last 4 years since Ja's been here. You know what I mean? And he, the night that in question where he allegedly had a gun, he clearly was drinking, and he was doing what people do in the strip club, which is drink and enjoy the women of the evening. You know what I mean? And I'm not saying anything's wrong with that. But if it's something that he doesn't have control of, I'm totally down with him doing what he has to do. And you asked the question, is it a difficult thing to do? Yes. Especially at a young age like that. When you feel like the world is in your hands, when you feel like you're invincible, when you feel like you're untouchable. When you finally get touched, Jason Smith, that's when it becomes difficult to you, and you have to figure these type of things out. I'm glad that he's taking the initiative to get these things done. I'm glad the Grizzlies are holding him accountable. I'm glad the Grizzlies, from what I feel like, what I see, are not making him feel like a criminal, not making him feel like the world is over, making him feel like there's an open door. But they're holding him accountable to do what he needs to do. No rush on time coming back. At least it doesn't seem like it is. But I think it's a very difficult situation. I think that it's something when these type of words come out, counseling facilities, and he's away, he's in Florida. He ain't sitting at home on a Zoom call, you know what I mean, with some therapist or whoever talking to him. This is something where he's away from everything, away from the noise, away from his boys, away from his family, away from his child, you know what I mean, to do what he has to do. So that makes you, that sounds off alarm. That rings a bell to make you think that this is something that he's really battling with and he really needs to take care of. And I'm pulling for him. I know you are. I know that everyone listening to this show wants to see him come out on top because, like I said, it does definitely seem like this definitely has to be something difficult when you are this mega star, this mega NBA star in the making that we're seeing take leaps and bounds. You know, Nike shoes. Nike has 9 different colorways that we've seen of this shoe. I just saw a John Morant box sliding down the ice slide in Utah. You know what I mean? I saw this, man. You know what I mean? I saw the shoe go online. Only exclusive people could buy it. And hey, this is where we are with y'all, man. And I know that being humbled, being in a situation where you feel, you know, like you don't, like things are slipping out of your grasp, I'm sure that's a difficult thing to do.
So I want to look at it from this point of view. With Ja, if we're discussing this, I have a confidence that the Grizzlies organization, knowing, you know, what it does about Ja, knowing sort of his approach prior to this, will put the right things in place to support him in terms of trying to change, trying to, you know, to not go, hey, maybe I don't stay out till, as Brevin said, I don't stay out till 3 a.m. Hey, maybe I'll listen out to midnight. You know, that was real.
That's a fun night to me. If I stay out to midnight, Jason Smith, I'd have some fun, man.
Well, either way, whatever it is, I don't have any doubt that the Grizzlies will adjust and have the right lane for him. My concern, Sain, is this: if we're talking about an alcohol issue, is the group, the support system outside of the Grizzlies? Because I'm gonna speak from my own personal experience. When I finally hit an age where I realized, bro, I got to stop drinking because I have an issue with it where I can't stop once I start. The change was going to be more difficult if, in this case, and I'm just pulling back the curtain on my family, my wife didn't decide with me, you know what, I'm gonna stop too, because we used to keep alcohol in the house.
Right.
And my wife at that time where I'm going through it, if she doesn't decide as part of her support of me that she's going to stop too, I know that journey might be tougher for me. So back to the point, what my concern is, a higher level of concern, saying, is once you go outside the Grizzlies for Ja, that support system, I know there's been a lot of talk about his family and everything else, but I'm talking about everybody around him. When you're 23, like for me, when I had to stop, had to cut off a lot of my friends that were drinking, not because I didn't like them as friends anymore, because if I'm in that situation with them, I might be more inclined to have that drink. You know what I'm saying? And that's me in my late 30s, early 40s, taking that long to figure out, okay, this is what I need. So my concern, so my concern was for Ja, once he's outside that Grizzlies organization, when he goes back home or when he decides, you know what, I do want to go out with my partners, are they going to have that proper level of support? Are they willing to? You can't ask them to stop.
You had your one drink, man. What one drink gonna do?
And are they going to have your back? Are they going to make it tougher for you because they're drinking in your face? You know what I'm saying? Like that's the issue, because man, it's one thing when you're talking about work and having to change for work. You do that because you know what, that you want to keep them checks coming. It's another thing when you're talking about outside of work, when this is what you've been used to doing, your boys and folks are still doing it. Heck, maybe even your family is doing it because it's normal. You know what I'm saying? It's normal. It's social. It's part of it. And so if, again, we're talking about an alcohol issue, I'm so concerned about not, again, what the organization is going to do for them. They're going to make the adjustments. It's going to be what this young man's support system outside of that, that they can make it tougher or easier for him. And I just hope that they're prepared, you know, to try to do their part as well. Because I know the Grizzlies going to try to do everything they can.
Yeah, man. Like I said, and we're kind of throwing stuff, you know, we're both just two kind of experienced guys who kind of know how the world works, you know what I mean? And there's nothing out there saying that Ja has an alcohol problem. But I mean, let's just be real. I mean, like we started out by saying that, you know, that's the most likely scenario to me. Like this,
we were like you said, you touched on it, man. We were applauding the man when he was drinking the tequila on the way to the All-Star game. We're saying, grown man can do what he wants. We're not criticizing that, but what we never
question, can he
when
really
we're doing that is that it may be building into something where a young man that seems to have everything else all figured out, especially on the court, might not be able to deal with what comes with that kind of
You know, I'm prepared to get flack. I'm prepared to get kickback, especially with something you're putting on YouTube. But I mean, come on, man. Like, it's not like we haven't seen, like you talked about the family structure. It's not like we haven't seen T belligerently drunk at games. You know what I mean? Like, fucked off drunk at games, man. And like, you know what I mean? It's getting interviewed and full of it. You know what I mean? So, I know we live in a society we're not supposed to assume things, but I'm perfectly fine with assuming, hey, this looks like a classic substance abuse issue. You know, what that substance is, I don't know. But if I was a betting man, I would say it was drinking. And I'm fine with it. And if people get upset with that, that's cool. I have the right to have my opinion, to assume what I want to assume. If I'm wrong, hey, I'm wrong. But regardless, what it is, if it's I'm addicted to these streets, I'm addicted to whatever it is. Like we talked about when we first talked about this, whatever it is that John needs help in, we'll support you, man. We want you to come out of this. You're a young king in this city, man. The city's in the palm of your hands, and this entire NBA league could also be as well, because you have unmatched, unseen before level of potential as far as star power in this league, where you have this urban street hip hop type appeal, and you have this crazy appeal you have towards kids of all ages, size, creed, color, whatever. And we don't want to see you blow that, man. And we don't want to see your life be any less, you know what I'm saying, quality than it should be.
No, it's about being the best version of
for sure, man.
Yeah, no question. That's what we all want to see. Of course, you're listening to the Grind Season podcast here with your boys Jason Smith and Anthony Sain. You can follow Sain on Twitter at Sain Asylum. You can follow me at Jason Smith 929. You can get the podcast on the free Odyssey app or wherever you get your podcast. Just search for Grind SZN season. We do it twice per week. This is the first of this week. We'll have another edition for you later on this week. Grizzlies, we know, still on the road. Got Miami coming up. They're going to go to San Antonio after that. Now on to our final segment. Who brought the seasoning? We've got 3 games to select from. A nice patch of games to pick from in terms of sample size. That's what I'm trying to get at. So, without further ado, who brought the season, whether it's good or bad? Sain, I'll give you the floor for the Memphis Grizzlies. Who brought the season, or anybody who brought the season?
Jason Smith. I'm gonna tell you a story to start this and all. This is our first YouTube episode, so I'm gonna make sure I want to come in prepared. I ain't gonna lie, I say I came in prepared, but I thought about this when the show first started, and it's in my head now. We're gonna roll with it. Jason Smith, kind of like John Morant. I ain't no private school kid, man. I had a daddy, you know, worked hard. Mama, both my mama and daddy worked. You know, we did what we had to do with what we had. You know what I'm saying? And you know, now I'm out of that, and I'm, you know, whatever. But we would get a box of stuff sometimes, Jason Smith. A box of just random food items, you know what I mean? That would come from different agencies, or people would donate food to us. Because my mom, I was the youngest of 5 kids. And my mom and daddy ends and always meet. So sometimes we get stuff donated to us. You understand what I'm saying? And inside that box, Jason Smith, this isn't a seasoning per se, but in the black home, it kind of became one. And that item I'm talking about, Jason Smith, is butter. All right?
Yep.
Now, the butter I'm talking about that we was getting in this brown box, Jason Smith, it wasn't the Parquet. It wasn't the Land of Lakes. It wasn't. What's another? It wasn't Crab. Crab got a butter. Crab got a butter, right?
And it wasn't Kroger brand.
It wasn't even Kroger brand. It wasn't. I can't believe it's not butter. It wasn't none of that, Jason Smith. It was a big, huge block of butter. That looked like a Velveeta block of cheese, yet bigger. It was what you call government butter, Jason Smith. And the thing about that government butter, Jason Smith, it was hard to melt. It didn't melt like regular butter. When it melted, it had a little oil in it. You could kind of see it separated. It didn't melt solid. You could kind of see the parts going their own way. The water, the milk, the oil, everything could kind of go its own way once it finally started melting in the grease, Jason Smith. You understand what I'm saying?
Yes.
And something else about that butter, you can sit in the refrigerator forever. And you can just sit there forever. You would think it ain't doing nothing. But it's some magic inside that government butter. And if you try to spread it on some bread, some toast, it's just a hard fight, Jason Smith. And the person I'm giving my season to is a young man that kind of shaped like that government butter, Jason Smith. Kind of got the same skin complexion, kind of got the same build as that big block of government butter, Jason Smith. Are you with me so far?
I'm very much with
you. You got him, you kind of had to put him in the pantry because he wasn't quite ready yet. But when you need him, you got to get you a hot knife to really cut through him and break him down. And you know your bread going to get tore up because that hard butter kind of tear up shit. You understand what I'm saying? And that person I'm talking about is big body David Roddy. My guy, David Roddy. The best of all these bums that they have that they said that they ain't missed, that they don't miss on. David Roddy's been phenomenal the past 3 games, especially the last two. Career high 20-something points the other night. Had 19 in the last game against Dallas. If he could only play Dallas every night, David Roddy would be an all-star. But he's been doing it all, man. There's something I said about him at the beginning of the season, and I stand on it right now to this day. There are guys who their entire life they've been alphas. They've been the best player on every team they played for, even if they played for a small school. Guys like a Kendrick Davis in Memphis. I guarantee you, if Kendrick Davis plays for anybody in the NBA, you're going to see him have big moments because he's got an alpha mentality. There's something about David Roddy that I said. I'd rather have a guy who isn't good enough to be a star in the NBA, who has to learn how to be a role player, than to have a guy who's been a role player all his life, then ask him to be an NBA role player. You understand what I'm saying? When we talked about David Roddy versus Zaire, I always said I got way more faith in Roddy because he's a guy who's been the guy who's a go-to player. Everything goes through him. You know, every big shot, everything goes to him. I'd rather have that guy who's not good enough to be a star, like I said, in the NBA. I'd rather have him learn how to adjust, learn how to find his niche, because there are a ton of guys like that in the NBA. Most guys who are role players in the NBA were stars at some level in college. And you're seeing it. You're seeing him adjust in real time in front of our eyes. I'm super excited. He brings a ton of energy. They're using him as a small ball power forward as well, Jason Smith. That gets me super excited to see that. We thought Brandon Clark was undersized. I'm not sure how tall David Roddy is because he's listed as 6'4" some places. I've seen him listed as tall as 6'6", 6'7". I don't know because his girth, his girth kind of makes him where you can't really tell how tall he is. But he's been phenomenal the past 2 games. Energy, getting to the basket, getting fouled, being a bruiser. There are a ton of undersized power forwards in the league, and he's a guy who I think, whether it be as a small forward, power forward, even a little shooting guard, David Roddy's been phenomenal. He definitely gets my season this week. Good government butter. Still trying to melt that joint.
Great, because that's what he is, a big old block. You can't move him and he don't melt.
On the block.
Football player, man, whether quarterback or whatever, like the man's physical, he's a leader out there. I like him a lot. Saying to me, he's the example of why you cannot write folks off, especially at this point in the season.
Yeah, you can. Yeah, you
can. Around here, because you were right. First off, it was all the rookie bums. He was in the group. Now he's the best of the bums, according to you. So he's moved up a little. But that's my point.
You never heard me say anything bad about
you had written off all the rookies. That man stopped. You were done with
as being ready for the playoffs, man.
And that is the point. If you write off some of these guys, then Roddy wouldn't be giving you this now. That's why you can't write off Zaire just yet. It's quite possible that man is a straight bum, but you can't do it just yet.
It's a possibility.
We wrote Santi off last year. If that's not, there's so many examples of writing. We wrote off Xavier Tillman this year. What are we talking about here?
We saw signs of Roddy being a hooper last year, though.
I understand that. And we said it looks better than LaRavia and everything else. But the point was, man, there was a point this season where you said, man, you ain't getting nothing from this rookie class. They're not playing them. They look like, and now you've gotten 2 straight games of real contribution from Roddy. My point is not, oh, this guy's going to stick and it isn't. It's just that with where they are at this point in the season, with the personnel they got, you just can't write anybody off right now, man, especially around around this organization. All that said, you got my guy is Flower. You know how Flower, you put it's underappreciated. It's Flower is responsible for the consistency. It's responsible for the texture.
Picking it up a little bit.
And my Flower, man, and
he about to say another thick motherfucker.
He's exactly that. A thick dude up in the biceps and everywhere else. And he was back home this weekend down in Texas is Desmond Bain. Just the consistency of Flower, man. 20 after a 7-point game against the Lakers, very disappointing effort. He goes 21, 25, 23. So he had combined 48 in the 2 Dallas games. It's really what he's doing too as a playmaker. 6, 8, and 7 assists. So he totaled 21 assists in the 3 games, averaged 7 assists. So was playmaker for you, was consistency for you, and at a time that you most needed it. So I knew, I jumped on Roddy too. I figured when he was going down, I said that man's getting the seed, but I knew Sain was going to have David Roddy. So I wanted to make sure. And David Roddy was the flash these last 2 games, the sizzle, the headline. As far as I'm concerned, he was a revelation. But want to make sure we're giving flowers to a man who's super consistent again at a time they need. Jaren, even a little up and down. Tyus offensively a little up and down, even though Ty's been great as a playmaker. Bain has been right there when you need him here these last 3 games, and hopefully it continues for the Grizzlies as they continue on. A couple days they've got the Miami Heat. Then they go to they got Miami on Wednesday. Then they head down to San Antonio on Friday before they're back here against Golden State on Saturday night. That fourth Golden State game, we didn't talk about how, Dillon Brooks and how, you got to tip your cap to Dillon for that performance. Well, we did it right after the Lakers. Remember that we did a Wednesday. Our second podcast of the week last week was Wednesday.
We did 2 quick ones, yeah.
So we didn't catch. We were coming off the Lakers loss, so we didn't get into Golden State. Dillon's performance in that one versus Draymond, who would set him up with the whole you're a clown. Got to tip my cap to Dillon.
We talked about that on your show, but we ain't did a grind.
Exactly, we did that on Friday on my show on the radio.
Well, we talking about it now. Goddamn.
Yeah, well, props to Dillon Brooks, man, because I thought he responded well in that one. And then we'll get the 4th installment of the best rivalry in the NBA coming up next Saturday when Golden State comes back here. Grizzlies will be trying to even the regular season series at 2-2. But we'll be back long before that Golden State game. Like we said, Grizzlies have got Miami tomorrow. That's going to do it for today's episode. Again, we'll be back later on this week. For my man Drew Barrett, our producer, and his great work. For my man Anthony Sain, the true talent here, I'm Jason Smith. Until next time, stay on your grind.